Hey, what's up, guys? Today I'm going to teach you how to carry using Warwick. Step 1 is warding your red buff and then going straight to blue buff.
30 seconds until minions spawn.
Now, the reason we start with blue buff is because Warwick has a very healthy clear on blue buff. Now, you're going to hit the blue buff, then Grump into Wolves, and then you're going to rotate over to your red buff,
Minions have
and then
spawned.
into Scuttle or Gank, depending on how it's going to end up, as you can see here. Now, as you can see right here, Warwick doesn't need a leash. Now, it would have been nice if my top lane would have came down to help me. Just, give me a faster clear so I can get into ganks earlier. But it's completely unnecessary. My Q gives me back a ton of HP. And then also Smite. So after we take out blue buff, and we get that mana regen, we start working on the Grump. And once we get low enough, we smite it, and we have full HP again. And then we do a quick takeout of the wolves. And we want to kite them a little bit towards the next camp that we're going to be doing, so we save a little bit of time. Now, right after we finished with wolves, I'm going straight to red buff, and should be done with red buff pretty quickly. And this game we are rushing Blade of the Roaring King as our first item, and our mythic will be, I believe it is Trinity Force, and our boots will be Lucidity. After we're done with red buff, we go and we fear the Scuttle. When you fear the Scuttle, it loses its shield, which makes taking it out pretty quickly. And then we find the cat in the jungle, and we take her out pretty quickly and steal her blue buff as well. With Warwick, you're a really early game champ, so you want to make sure that your opponent has no chance of coming back in the game. So you want to take as many camps as you can and ward as much as you can. And after that, I take out my raptors. I usually would go back after defeating a champ and spend some gold, but there's no one on their team that I'm really worried about. And I'm Warwick, and I got that lifesteal, so I'm just gonna keep on roaming until I can get a gank. So I'm taking out my camps again, getting as good of an early game start as I can, because Warwick does fall off late game if you don't get a snowball. So after I take out Grump right here, I will be backing and buying my first few items into Blade of the Roaring King, just so I can have that better 1v1. It just really helps with your ganks. Alright, so at this moment, I see that dragon is up, and so I'm going to start making my way towards bottom lane to give him an early gank. But first I have to take out my golems, so I quickly do that. Golems are usually the hardest thing for Warwick to get early game, but with Blade of the Roaring King, he is able to complete them a little faster. Now, this Blitzcrank that I'm working with is a monster. Like they did a great job. They set me up with a lot of good kills early game and late game, as you see. So I start pinging for the dragon right here. It takes them a while to rotate, but that's completely fine. Warwick can clear dragons at level 4. So I didn't really necessarily need their help, but it's always better to get the available teammates on objectives. So we clear dragon, and I take out my raptors again, hoping for a good gank on the Veigar. Excuse me. Veigar in this game was a monster, so getting him early would be the best option for us. It was at this point that Veigar started popping off as he killed my mid laner relatively easily. So instead of doing a mid lane gank, I just started working on my clears to get more money and more levels. Because the most important thing in League of Legends is getting CS. It's way more important than getting kills. It's way easier, and it really does matter the most by the end of the game. Now my top laner was pinging me earlier to help them with this Gwen, but as of right now I don't see a nice gank for them, so I go to try to gank bottom lane or mid lane again. He walls me off, so I ward their raptors, and then I come back around and try to get him. So I use my ult and I catch him, and I got him low enough to where he really can't all in us. But so I go ahead and I try Scuttle, and my top lane rotates to help me with Scuttle. Now with Cat being so far behind, and my mid laner taking her out right now, she's pretty much out of the game already. The only one that on their team that we really have to worry about is the Ashe Diego, or in the Veigar. I gank top lane to get the kill, and then we go to drop Rift Herald in mid lane. We just want to get rid of mid lane and let our mid lane roam, because again he is a monster. I hit him with the ult and he backs off. I believe he backs here, so I pop Rift Herald and I move up again. I go back to base to finish my Blade of the Ruined King. Alright, at this point I notice that Dragon will be up relatively soon, so I start making my way towards Dragon again. I hit red buff, so I become a little more tanky, and then I make my way to Dragon. Warwick needs to have as many objectives as possible in order for him to survive late game. He is a complete early game champion. So we need all the dragons and all the Rift Heroes we can get, and if you want to make Warwick a late game option, or you just fodder at that point. The cat does chase me. I have to wait for my cooldown, so I run away. So she keeps on chasing me, so I ult her, and we take her out 2v1. My mid laner does keep on chasing the Veigar, which I thought was a bad idea. So I rotate to take their Raptors, and then their red buff. When you're playing jungle, you want to take as many of your opponent's objectives as possible in CS, so they can't play the game. The jungle is the wild card, and you do not want them to be able to comfortably play the game again. At this point, I noticed that my mid laner is pinging that he's gonna go top lane, so I jump over here to assist in the team fight, and we get a quick kill on the cat, and we start moving in on, I believe, their tower. Oh no, I tried to ward off the Gwen, but I didn't have a ward at the moment, so I just backed. I start building into my Lucidities.
Red team's turret has been destroyed.
And I start going mid lane. Alright, so I start going to mid lane, and I notice that my mid laner did die. So there's nothing for me to do here since my top lane rotated. So I go to clear more of my opponent's CS. It's something you should always be doing, taking as much of their resources as possible. They already put themselves in a predicament when they chose Cat, so I'm going to make them pay. At this point, we start pinging for Rift Herald, so I take Scuttle so we have an early exit if we do need to leave, and we start working on Rift Herald. Now, again, Warwick can take all objectives by himself at level 4, except for, Baron and Clover, because he has, that broken lifesteal. Now, after we get Rift Herald, we take a top lane this time, and everyone shows up for top lane. Do a quick dive, and take the Gwen out. Now, the Ashe almost gets me, but again, with Warwick having that passive, when he's lower, he does more damage. I do survive, and just add more pressure to them. I keep on taking resources always. Never stop taking resources. It's very important. I see that the Gwen is coming in, and I do not want to fight that one-on-one, because this is a team game. You always want to have the advantage. So now that our whole team is here, I drop Rift Herald, and we start pushing in top lane. We have it completely warded, so there's really no way for them to go. We just clear lane. Did I get a double here? Or they didn't give me the double, but obviously it should have been a double. And at this point I thought they were going to forfeit at 15, but they did not. So I back and I buy my full Trinity Force, I believe. And now I'm a little tanky. No, I got most of my Trinity Force. So I'm a little tanky, and I have a lot of attack. And we take Red Dragon now. Inferno. The whole team comes over here. And now we start pushing in their base. I get a lucky ult on Ash. It hits. And that was purely off of the Blood Trail. Taking more of the enemy's CS and just roaming around looking for what to do next. I pick up another Blood Trail and it's Gwen. And this one gets a little tough right here in a couple seconds. But I'm able to pull it off.
Red team's turret.
I start taking out these golems. Now at this point I have enough for my Trinity Force, and I want to move go back. But first I'm gonna push in lane and make sure I get as much gold as I possibly can before I go back. No one on their team scares me in a one-on-one, so I tried to go back, but I get double teamed. But being Warwick and having that life steal built in means the more they get me lower, the more damage I do. So I get a quick double team right here, and I finish pushing in this tower. And at this point, I back, and I finish buying my items. With it being 25-9, the game is over. All we have to do is not throw. So we just have to play safe and put as much pressure on as we can. Right now, I'm going back top, but at first I'm gonna clean up my objectives, my blue buff. So Warwick uses a lot of mana to make sure he stays in the game. And so I'm chasing down the Gwen. The Gwen, her ability, nothing outside that circle can hurt her, so you have to make sure you're inside the circle in order to put pressure on it. We take out another tower, and now we only have one enemy inhibitor. The Viego here, I believe, shows up. Oh, not yet. But the Viego starts putting some pressure on us in a couple minutes. So here's where the Viego shows up and starts pushing pressure on the mid lane. But within a 2v1, we completely dominate him. And I should have backed here, but I started throwing. I got overconfident, and I really shouldn't have been there in the first place. So that was my only death of the whole game, but I gave them a full 700 point bounty. I'm glad that my bottom laner right here gets dragon, because again I completely messed up by not rotating back to get dragon and trying to push for game. But now that I'm back, only thing that's left to do is win. So we start pinging for Baron. And if everyone gets there, even if they are alive, we still should be able to take Baron. Because I don't think any of them can beat us in any of our champions in a one-on-one fight. We completely outscaled them this match. And we take Baron pretty quickly after, we do have all 4 dragons anyway. And Dragon Soul. So after we take Baron, I'm trying to decide if I should back now or what's going on in the game. Normally I would back, but again, they have no team chemistry, so there's really no point of me backing. So I just want to push with my mid laner, push in top lane. I wait here for a couple seconds so I can ward, see what's happening. And once they see me, they pretty much just start running away. As they kind of have no choice. I start getting low, so I start backing off. I place a ward here, just in case someone does back away, they can teleport in and flank them. And we just start clearing them. One by one, we start picking them off. The Viego's the last one standing, as usual. He was pretty much their team's carry. I start taking out bottom lane's inhibitor. That's the final inhibitor, and we push for game right here. The full team did our job, and everyone did what we're supposed to do. And when that happens, it's almost impossible to lose. So this is how you carry on Warwick. Hope you enjoyed.